just finished rereading World of Warcraft's latest book, Exploring Azeroth Northrend. This has given us an exciting look into the frozen continent in modern day. How much has Northrend changed since the war against the Scourge has ended and the events of Shadowlands have since passed? While I will not cover everything from the book, I will cover some parts that stood out to me. Let's find out together as we look at how this could be foreshadowing major events to come in the near future. Come, take a seat by the fire. The first notable moment leads us to the Howling Fjord, to a village in the ice floes called Kamugwar. The Tuskarr-owned port does not belie some great mystery. However, it was noted that many of the Tuskarr were sailing east on fishing boats and canoes. They mention how welcoming ports have recently reopened, ones their very ancestors travelled to long ago. They are, of course, talking about the Dragon Isles, with one of the new major factions being the Tuskarr. We may get to see some familiar faces and hear even more stories on how their people have fared. This next part is as good a point as any to mention one of my disappointments. The Nerubians get a single page in the book. While they are mentioned elsewhere, it is only in passing. The book did an excellent job to remind people that the Nerub were not evil, and most of the ones we fight are actually under Scourge control. It did not imply we would be hearing from them any time soon. What it did say was that the survivors are few in number, and that their city is crumbling into nothing, since the Scourge that infests it cares nothing for the preservation of history. To me, this is the hardest part to come to terms with. The realization that we may never get to walk the ancient landscape of Ajol Nerub again. Perhaps, with the updated archaeology that was promised to arrive shortly after Dragonflight, we will get to visit areas like this once again and delve into its mysteries. I am betting it still has more than a few. This leads us to probably the most interesting mystery revealed in the book. In Dragonflight, along the shattered walkway leading from Wormrest Temple that was named the Path of the Titans, you may remember a stone giant that walked along it. His name was Jotun, and he is missing. Even the keepers at Ulduar could not ascertain his whereabouts. For some background on Jotun, he was a close friend of the keeper Tyr. When Tyr had his hand bitten off by Galakrond, it was Jotun that forged him a new one, and even helped him to inscribe his new sigil into his famed hammer. When Tyr fled south from Loken's betrayal, the giant stayed behind and was subsequently cursed for it. For anyone that played Holy Paladin in Legion, you may remember this next part. The Order Hall Paladin who was on a journey to retrieve Tyr's hammer faced off against the cursed Jotun, and after the fight he seemed to come to his senses. It is no coincidence that Dragonflight is placing a focus on Titan artifacts, like a certain glove that was shattered by Razagath, and then a master craftsman with ancient secrets suddenly goes missing. Jotun's story did not get answered in the book, because his story will continue in Dragonflight. Not only is Jotun a master craftsman of a lost age, but it also implies that he has knowledge of using order magic to purify decay. The bite of Galakrond had infectious properties, raising the drakes he bit into a state of undeath. If Tyr also suffered from one of these bites, it is likely he also suffered from the same infection. The silver chosen as the metal for the new hand was likely not an incidental one, and as we saw with the Order of Embers, silver has unique properties of cleansing or stemming the flow of corruption. As we have seen from our recent videos, the spread of rot and decay is very prevalent in Dragonflight, and any knowledge in stemming this endless tide will be more than welcome. Moving along, the next point I found interesting came to fruition in the chapter in Sholazar Basin. However, this was a theme throughout the entire book really, as well as through a lot of the lore coming in from Dragonflight. One that was succinctly put in the books where Muradin said, "They've a benign love of the life they've created, but I've seen how corrupting power can be." This is of course in reference to the Keepers, not the Titans themselves. The power the Titans left them was incredible, which would be fine as long as the Titan creations were infallible. But as we have seen, they are most certainly not. Loken's fall to madness, Odin's current and past behaviour to name but a few. We only have to look at Thunderfall in Northrend to see what can happen when these beings have a fit of rage. Thorim is considered one of the more benevolent keepers, and he, in his temper, threw his hammer. This killed everyone immediately in the vicinity. But not only that, it literally held all the bodies within its blast radius in a temporal stasis, leaving their spirits trapped and wandering in this hellish state for all time. To most of these demigods we are ants, or flesh-mutated failures from a bygone age. To place our trust in these beings when they hold this much power over our fate would be folly. It is only a matter of time until others begin to realise this self-same fact. However, my last point is on a very exciting inclusion. Within the book, they spent a lot of time focusing on how certain races have fared since our time in Northrend. Notably, the Frost Dwarves and the Tonka. It feels extremely likely either we will get a new allied race, or perhaps a new customization for existing ones. I will say with almost certainty the Frost Dwarf option will come, considering at the end of the book the Frost Dwarves were welcome to Ironforge, and the Dwarves would allow any number of them to stay as long as they wished. The Tonka seem a little less likely, but I am not giving up hope just yet. Overall, I was super happy with the books, and anyone interested in the lore, especially those who played through Northrend and loved it, should pick them up. I did not mention a few of the lore inconsistencies that can be found, but like the last Exploring Azeroth, they are told from a perspective, and they make sense coming from them characters, and it's nothing too egregious anyway. So tell me in the comments, What did you love most about Northrend? Or join us on the Discord and tell us all there. For me, it will always be the Nerubian. I love underground races and hidden lost kingdoms. Oh, and don't forget to come back anytime.